Hey, I am a revision geek and I want you to come and join my revision geek world. Welcome to the Diaries of a Revision Geek. I cannot wait for you to watch these interviews. They are so super fun. I've got qualified accountants together talking about their revision journeys, the highs, the lows, the struggles, and all the things in between about how other people got their plaque up on the wall and how they got qualified. I've picked qualified accountants in my LinkedIn network on purpose to help and support you guys, to inspire and motivate you if you are on your accounting journey. Feel free to like and subscribe below for more. Just click on the icons and I will keep you up to date with the Diaries of a Revision Geek. Let's get started. In today's interview, we have Tom. He is ACCA qualified. In Tom's journey, we talk about how he took the opportunity to study and what it meant for him, how tutoring supported his revision. We rebrand the word mock, and there's some extra special coaching chat for you between a tutor and a coach. Enjoy the Revision Geek interview. Let me know what you think. Oh, I'm very excited about today's interview. One of our fellow tutors who is also as LinkedIn famous as me, Tom. Hi, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Helen. Good to be here.
So if anybody hasn't seen you before, introduce yourself. Let us know what exam you've qualified in.
So I did ACCA and I have been teaching the financial accounting, the financial reporting, IFRS aspects of ACCA now for many years, and I now do it online. I now do it as an independent lecturer. I am an SBR ACCA online lecturer.
Great, we're going to talk about that at the end of the interview as well, but yeah, like the interviews are going to be, the Diaries of a Revision Geek are all about your revision journey. So we have our plaques up. We're going to point to our plaques lots today. Because we're super proud by it. It's a great achievement, which we'll talk about the achievement, but talk me through your revision journey. What was it like for you qualifying as a student?
Oh, qualifying as a student changed my life. I went to a grammar school, but I left school at 16 and went to my local college and was knocking around. So qualifying transformed my career prospects and was a savior because I had not made the choice to go to university. So qualifying was everything.
Oh, I want to know loads more. So when did you start? What made you start? What made
me start? If I'm brutally honest, I suppose a combination of two things made me start. When I got into the workplace, I realized how difficult it was to climb the ladder without a qualification, and my lovely employer at the time offered me day release, which is just unheard of today. And I just thought, well, that's a day out of work. I was 18, I was in an office, and someone said you can go to college, you know, one day a week to study ACCA. So I said, thank you very much. I was also in love at the time. I'd met my wife as a teenager, and I suddenly, if it's not a sexist thing to say, I suddenly realized I needed to man up and earn an income to provide for a future for us. So I was very motivated. And I think that motivation was really key to my long-term success, because I started right at the bottom and I had to do every single ACCA exam. And I don't want to bang on about this, but in those days, there were 20 of them. Wow. I was doing 5 at level 1, 10 at level 9, 19 of them. Well, 20 of them, one was a double paper. But anyway, so it was a long slog. So I did a lot of revision, and I had sort of different strategies for different papers, and it's kind of evolved as I got through.
And how did you study? Did you use a tuition provider for all of it?
In the very early days, I was sent by my employer to my local college. So I kind of did that day release, but that I changed jobs, and that sort of funding dried up. So I was on my own for the last kind of 3 years of studying. So I was paying for it myself, and I cherry picked. I lived just north of London. And so back in the day, there was a series of small tuition providers in London, which have now become Kaplan and have now become BPP. But back in the day, it was Emil Wolf, it was AT, it was all sorts of little providers. And I would tart myself around. I would listen to what other students were saying, and I would go to a particular lecturer in often a very drafty church hall, and perch on a little desk and kind of listen to what they had to say.
Good. Like with a lot of people I'm interviewing for this series, I don't know what people's revision journey is like, so I'm just hearing it for the first time as well. So did you pass all of your exams first time? Did you have any failures?
I did struggle. Yeah, I did have a retake along the way. I really didn't get on well with sort of the financial management accounting papers. So I did struggle with those. In those days, in the early days, you didn't get a mark. You just got told whether you were pass or fail. And then later on, you were getting the marks. And I remember on my finals, I got 50 for financial management. Never really got to grips with cost of capital, all that kind of stuff. And I got my best mark in audit. I remember I got 77 in audit, but there you go.
So what traits would you say helped you keep going? How long was your journey? Was it the typical?
My journey was about 4 years. It's about 4 years. Knowing why I was doing it, and why I was doing it was to support my life. I was investing in my future. I was investing my time as well as my money, but it was mostly my time. And I had perhaps I wasn't so aware of it consciously at the time, but it was that. I think if I'd been on my own, I wouldn't have had the same motivation. You can't live your life twice, so I can only reflect on my own experience. And I got a buzz out of passing, and I got some pay rises, and that felt good. And I knew I'd messed up as a teenager in state education, in my formal education. And so this was an opportunity to kind of, sock it to them and, prove to myself that, I was academically okay.
And you got your plaques. You proved it.
I got my plaque.
Proof, right?
I got my plaque. Still there. Still there. Absolutely, Helen. Absolutely.
This is how proud we are of our plaques, right? Yeah, we're just going to have them up forever.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I talk about the revision journey and the exam journey as an emotional roller coaster with the highs and the lows. So talk me through some of the highs and lows that you remember.
Just the day after day of traveling all that way into London on a train, getting to college for like 9 o'clock to get a seat at the front because, it was a packed classroom, and being there, taking annual leave for the whole week, and then being back at the weekend and hearing about your mates going out. And, that was kind of the highs and the lows all at the same time, because there was a camaraderie around that experience, and I knew that it was a worthwhile thing to do. I would say this, wouldn't I, because I've ended up in the profession of teaching, but I just felt that my tutors were able to add enormous added value to my studies because they had walked down that path. They knew how to explain something. When I used to read a book, I did self-study a couple of papers, and I found it harder. And because when you read a book, you can't ask the book a question, and the book doesn't necessarily put shades of grey. The whole page, every word seems equally important, and that's not the case. There are some key principles which you have to grasp, and then there are some surrounding fluff sometimes around the topic, and a tutor is able to give that shade of grey and that guidance. So I I'm not sure I would have qualified had I just been on my own. I really appreciated the revision journey by being guided by a tutor.
That's a good point, yeah, because obviously there's so much choice nowadays. I had less choice. I did classroom sessions with BPP. That was my choice, and I did some self-study as well. But now there's so much choice now, I wouldn't know which one to do. But the guidance that a tutor can give, as opposed to just a book, is priceless.
I think so. I think so. And you're right. There is a lot of choice, and you know, you've even got choice between going to a classroom, which some people have that option, or going online and studying online. And I don't think one size fits all. And I think one of the things that I like when I talk to my students is when they know themselves, when they're an adult learner and they've been to university and they've been in the workplace and they've been in physical meetings and they've had online training, and they themselves know themselves a little bit more, and then they can make a better decision. I think it's hard for somebody right at the beginning who perhaps doesn't know how hard professional exams are, or what type of learner and how disciplined they are. Because if you're not that disciplined, going to class is a discipline in itself. So all you have to do, all I had to do was drag myself to class. I had to set the alarm, leave the house, because a classroom experience is use it or lose it. And that's the way I was. I didn't have a choice at the time. Now, with the role of the internet, with the role of online learning, it is possible to have more flexible learning. But with that flexibility comes the need for the student to have self-discipline, to have routine and to have structure. And so it's not for everybody. You know, people have to know themselves.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There is a difference in students who understand what works for them, or are still learning what works for them. And that's totally okay. Like, it's normal, I would say, as well, because these are professional exams. They are not GCSE levels. And they are so much tougher than we realise when we first start them, especially if you fail.
Yeah, and I mean, I ended up at one stage in my career teaching at a university, and which then, you know, was giving exemptions for the professional exams. And, you know, the university experience from the tutor's point of view, you know, it was an interesting one. But the exam that I wrote the exam. I wrote the exam that they were sitting, and I taught them the contents and the way to approach the exam. And so the exam was a test of their competence. And I think professional exams have a different mindset, because the syllabus is far wider and it's a higher level skill that is being examined. And I think there is a jump, there is a gap for students who come through with a good university, good academic background, strong research skills. They still need to learn more, because it's another level up, another academic level up, and it's a different style of the exam. It's an unseen exam.
Yeah, and it's tested in a way that I still don't think you can pick what questions are going to come up, because of the way Mr. ACCA or Mr. CIMA word it, or want to approach the question, so that you don't have that one answer. There's multiple answers that can absolutely pass with lots of varieties of success.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do is I write, you know, when I see a new exam question, I'll write my answer. I'll write it, and then I'll look at the examiner's answer, and I'll kind of hold the two up, and it's a Venn diagram, you know, and the marking guides, and I, you know, I don't want to say anything that's inappropriate, but it's true that the markers at the higher levels, it's expert marked. And the reason it's marked by an expert is because there's judgment. There isn't a right or wrong answer. How you put an argument together and what strands you draw out from the question to synthesize the information and put your input in needs someone to read it. At the initial levels of the exam, yes, you can boil some things down to objective testing and multiple choice, and that's wonderful and that's efficient. But at the higher level, at the case study level, there is no one right answer. And for some people, that's liberating. For some people, that almost means the higher level exams are easier because they get a chance to express themselves. For others, and sometimes these are people who've worked really hard and are good at absorbing information, it's like, I'm being asked my opinion. I'm being faced with an unknown situation that I haven't seen this before.
What do I write about? What do I write? Someone tell me what to write.
Yeah. And so that comes to revision, I think. And in my revision journey, my personal revision journey, I kind of got away with it. We used to do a mock. They used to do a mock at the end of the revision course. There would be a half day at the end, and actually I used to take it home, and sometimes I did it and sometimes I didn't do it. Now I really try and make my students to do that revision mock. And to do a mock on tuition and to do mocks, because that feeling of being lost, that feeling of struggling and then finding your inner voice needs to be practiced, I think. Because absolutely. If you just look at a question, don't know the answer, and look at an answer, it's like,
obviously you're going to know it. If you look at the answer, you're going to know it. Then you'll have some brain waves, light bulb moments, right?
Yeah, there needs to be a patience sometimes. Students need to, in the exam, and having had the confidence of doing that on a mock exam, get that still silence for a minute and just think, I've never come across that before. But equally, that means in the exam that no other student has come across it before either, because, the final level exams are unique.
Yeah.
Each time it's, there's a brains trust going on in CIMA. There's a brains trust going on in ACCA, churning out these. Well, life is infinitely variable, isn't it? And as professionals, if we're going to have a value going forward, we've got to be able to deal with those issues.
And we need to communicate that in an answer and give our opinion on exam day with a blank, unseen question that we've never thought about before. And they are testing us on purpose for this. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
Keeping it real, let's be honest, like I do say to all of my students, please do this mock, please do this set of mocks before your exam, 4 weeks before the exam, do this revision structure. And like you said, like you sometimes did your mocks, sometimes you didn't. I'm a classic. I didn't do many, and I know I should have, and I do wish someone had politely poked me to be like, you have to do a mock, Helen, because it's just the best version. So obviously it's easy in hindsight for us to say that, but while we were doing it, I don't know about you, but what would you say from your revision journey, why you didn't, or why you now in hindsight know how important it is?
Well, I know how important it is because I've seen students fail and I've seen students pass, and I try and listen. So although I have been on one revision journey, I've kept in contact with people who've been through their own revision journeys, and I'm a little bit of a magpie, and I want to try and steal from them their experiences and be inspired by their experiences. And it's just a fact that if you do mock exams, you are increasing your chances of passing. It is just simply true.
True, because of the practice that it genuinely gives your brain, to write something.
And the fact that it then gets marked gives the student an opportunity to understand that even though they may have got 40 or 45 in a mock, which is technically a fail, but how can you fail a mock? It's a mock.
Yeah.
It's a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's a practice game. It's a friendly. It's a friendly. Maybe we should rebrand mock exams and call them friendly exams. In England play football and it's not a tournament, it's a friendly game.
Yeah.
It's still played to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's still to time. It's still taken seriously, but nobody cries at the end if they lose, And then the manager says afterwards, oh, well, we tried a new formation.
Yeah.
Learned something. And that's what students need to be able to do to reflect, because if a student gets 40 in a mock, they've done 40 good things.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to be reminded of those good things and that good technique. And then they need to have it pointed out that actually there are some gaps in their knowledge and signposted, or how they're going to improve, because they only have to improve a bit to get over that 50%. No one gets 100% in the exam. No one gets it right.
So based on that, obviously we've had ACCA results this week as well. Obviously the LinkedIn newsfeed has been full of congratulations, and obviously congratulations if you passed as well, by the way, guys. But there have been some very high numbers, you know.
There have. I mean, I've seen some of my students got 86, one got 85. I saw an advanced financial management student got 96. I mean, is this a human being doing this exam? It's amazing. But the role models for me, are those who get 50, those who get 52. You know, they're the ones who've also passed, and that deserves the same celebration. We're crossing a line, and it's like if you run a marathon. You know, anyone you know runs a marathon, don't ask them what time they did. Yeah, they ran a marathon.
Yeah.
Or they walked a marathon, or they did a marathon. Yeah. And that is the achievement. You know, when I go to my dentist, I don't say, oh, in your final exam, when you were looking at the molar test, what mark did you get for molars? You know, you say it's a dentist. They are professional. They are qualified. They've hit the competence button. So yeah, well done everyone who's passed. Those people who get in the 80s and the 90s, I do have a respect for them, but I wasn't that good as a student.
No, and I wasn't either. Yeah, I took my 50s, my 51s.
Yeah. They're passes. Yeah, they're passes.
And I would say, from my personal opinion, I do have a little bit of an extra, like, oh, well done if you got 48 last time, or if you fail, or if you've resit, even if you've resit like 20 times. I've got some of my students who have done that, but you've just kept going. Like, you won't get this plaque unless you keep going. Yes, I failed loads of my exams, but then I sat and sitting every single sitting that I could. For CIMA, there was only 2 a year. Yeah, you just keep going. Okay.
Perseverance.
Didn't dwell on my 36%. I got some of them, and I got some 48s. I just kept going. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. Yeah, it doesn't matter how you start at all. And you got there, Helen. We got there. I got there. And lots of other people get there. And I hope what we're able to do is to, help, look down the ladder and try and help pull them up.
And I would say, doesn't matter to me what mark you got or what knowledge you have. It's about how you feel in yourself. Do you feel like a great accountant? Do you feel like you understand? The feelings are so much more important than people talk about. It's not just the knowledge base. Do you know the technical models, or do you know how you feel about applying the technical models, and can you apply them, and the confidence that you have to apply them? How do you feel about your exam? Are you ridiculously nervous, or do you feel confident enough and prepared? The feeling is lovely. Like, is a thing that, well, I know it's lovely when you've got it, but it's worth consciously working on, as well as the knowledge base.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people ask me if I meet new people, what do you do? And I'm always a bit sort of reticent. And a friend of mine, John Cope, came up with the perfect answer, which I use, which is I teach people to pass exams. And there's sometimes, I think, a difference. That's a nuanced difference in the sense that the work experience to be a good accountant, it's a variety of skills that you need. You do need that technical knowledge, but yeah, that feeling and that work experience is being gelled together to become that good accountant. Because, I've never worked in a tax department in my life. So, having done my tax exams, I've not looked at tax at all. In fact, I now pay someone to do my tax returns because of competence. And I know my own limits, and that person who does my tax returns keeps himself up to date. I keep myself up to date on teaching IFRS. So a lot of accountants end up specializing. But it's good to have that general knowledge that we get through the qualification. And there's normally something that people can apply in a work situation. But I get that a lot of, I teach consolidations, I teach cash flows. Not everybody who is coming to do ACCA will work in in the environment where group accounts are being prepared. But it's a useful thing to be aware of in terms of interpretation, in terms of life skill. Because when you qualify, you don't know the job you're going to do in 5 years' time. You don't know the job you're going to do in 10 years' time. It's important. So
we've worked together kind of indirectly because we've had some of the same students, so you've taught them SBR, the technical, and I've coached them to pass their exams. So it's really funny what you said about what you say you do, because I know that there's amazing tutors out there, hundreds and hundreds of amazing tutors. And I say tutors teach you the syllabus, and what I do is I teach you how to pass the exam, because I coach so many CIMA and ACCA students. Whatever exam you're sitting, I can coach you on how to pass. So I don't technically know maybe the gearing whack formula off the top of my head or linear programming, but I can teach you how to pass an exam with a tutor's support. And we've worked really well with our students passed.
We have.
Their SBL with our support. So it's just really interesting, because I do know a lot of people do still say, Helen, what's a revision coach? What do you actually do? Teach me the syllabus. I'm like, I'm really sorry, I can't teach you. Well, I could, but I don't really choose to. But I can teach you the exam technique. So
and you create an environment that is supportive. You create an environment where you're holding them to account. And I think for some students, that's really important to build their confidence. I think, I like sport, and I like watching sport, and I use a lot of sporting analogies. When you got two boxers, when you got Liverpool playing Chelsea, everyone is very good at football. Everybody's very good at what they do. And why does one team win? And it sometimes it's up here, isn't it? That's the difference between winning and losing, passing and failing, is that ability to hold your shit together for 3.25 hours in the exam, to have the discipline to get up again when you've fallen. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up.
Yeah,
it's that mental strength. And you talked about your perseverance, and maybe now when you look back, I don't know whether you were self-aware of your perseverance at the time. When I was a student, I realized that I was very focused on the exam day. I had a routine on the exam day. I chose my exam center very, very deliberately, so I didn't have to travel. I had the same breakfast.
Yeah.
I got there early, and I didn't talk to students outside the classroom. I was in a narrow focus, and I read the exam paper, and I always did my best question first. I don't think anyone ever told that to me. And it was just something that was intuitive within me. And I would write, and I would come out of the exam exhausted with a very sore wrist, because I gave it my all. So I was good at doing exams. And I try and I now reflect on that, and I try and get that across to my students as well. Yeah, as you do.
Yeah, I definitely had a routine, and this is part of exam techniques. There's lots of jigsaw piece puzzles, I say, on what to practice and visualize. I use a lot of sporting analogies. Usain Bolt, Serena Williams, they're my two favorites that I talk about a lot. But yeah, I had my routine. So we were allowed a little bit of food and drink in my exams, and so I would always have a banana, always have a packet of Polos, and always have a bottle of water and my calculator and my pencil case. And yeah, that routine just really helped me, gave me confidence on exam day. And those little tweaks make a difference, especially when you pass. Like, you're going to repeat what you did in the last one, right? Yeah. I guess my determination was the end result, as well as obviously the exam days. But I think I did really think of my CIMA letters, my CIMA qualification. I'm just keeping going. I was never going to quit, never thought about it, even when I got my 36%. And I was like, oh my God, I'm rubbish. I think that's, again, maybe it's a personality trait, but it can be taught. You can, with some support from a tutor or a coach, you can have that guidance and someone on your shoulder really politely pushing you and holding your hand along the journey.
Yeah, and I think the first step is to understand why the individual is doing that. If they failed an exam, or they've struggled, or they're struggling, I'm not saying that they should give up. I mean, some people do give up, but or choose not to continue. But those who are continuing, why are they continuing? What is the reason for doing it? And if they can understand that, and if they can write that down, if they can articulate for themselves that it's about fulfilling their potential, it's about earning more money, it's about proving to their dad or somebody, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And it can be very personal. But if they know why they're doing it, then they understand the sacrifice. Then they're prepared to make the sacrifices which are necessary in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of missing out, in the short term for the long-term benefit.
Yeah, and it's a choice and it's a commitment. I say this would you like to commit and be dedicated for a period of time or a year or something, because this is worth it, So let's talk, let's talk about that. So what opportunities did you think would come from when you were qualifying? What opportunities did you think would come?
I thought more interesting work, and I thought more money. So it was a twin thing, and maybe more interesting work then brings on money. And what happened to me, I was working for KPMG at the time, and no one noticed I got qualified. I felt very kind of flat, really, because I wasn't given the promotion and I wasn't given the kudos. It was a chartered dominated environment at the time, and I was ACCA, and I think that attributed to that. Plus, maybe I was a bit big-headed. I don't know. So I left the firm and took up teaching. So what ACCA did for me was to give me choices and opportunities that I didn't realize even existed. I kind of knew it was going to be a passport. I just didn't know what plane I was going to get on. I didn't know I was going to be a teacher when I was studying. That wasn't part of my plan. My horizon was to get qualified. My goal was to get qualified because I knew then doors would open. And, bizarrely, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was offered a job in Singapore. So I said, yeah, fantastic. I'll take that job in Singapore. And I resigned my nice, job at Kaplan. And I was on 9 months notice or something. So I handed him a notice, worked it all out. And then 3 weeks before I was due to fly to take up this job, and I'd rented a flat, I'd done so much, that they phoned up and said, oh, can you send us your ACCA qualification, please? Because we need to get you the work visa, and you can't get in the country in Singapore and work in Singapore unless we have a work permit. And to have a work permit, you need to be a current member of ACCA and a person of good standing. Now, luckily, I was a member of ACCA. I had paid my subs. I was a member of good standing. So I was able to get a letter from ACCA to prove to the Singapore authorities that I was who I was. But it was like, oh my God, if I hadn't got that, so I didn't know that when I was studying that this meant that I could go and live and work abroad. I wasn't even aware of that. Just like when I was a student, there was no internet. There was no mobile phones. It may be hard to believe, but things can happen that are outside of your imagination. But if you've got that professional qualification, you're in the game. Yeah. The door that you can open the door. You can apply for that job. Whether you'll get it or not is another matter. Yeah. But having the qualification gives you opportunity. That's my lived experience.
I love that you call it a passport. I've not thought of it like that. A few other people on our interviews have said that, and it's true. because I love to travel, as I know you do, and so that passport enables us to travel. But this passport enables us to have a job and have a job around the world if that's what you want. But yeah, even if you don't know that's what you want now, with the passport, it's there forever. I remember when I was 17, I started to learn to drive. I didn't have a car, but I got my driving license. Still didn't have a car. I didn't actually have a car till I was 23, but I had the license to enable me when I was ready or when the time was right to have a car. This is another version of that in some ways, right? But drives
us through our career.
Yeah.
Drives us through our career.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh, you've had so many opportunities. I'm sure you could talk about loads more with us, but thank you. So my final question, Tom, I love this one because I give loads of revision tips. So what would be your number one revision tip for any qualifying accountants listening?
Study little and often. And remember that to pass the exam, it is not a test of how much knowledge you can absorb, but it's a test of how much you can apply in an unknown situation. When I listen to students, their biggest regret is that they didn't start revision early enough, that they were continuing to try and get to grips with a big syllabus and trying to learn everything. And actually, ultimately, you can't learn everything. You've just got to go in there and do past exam questions and start revision. And then you can kind of dip back sometimes into the tuition material. So starting revision early, doing those mock exams, little and often.
Giving yourself the chance to practice, actually practice. And you can't do that in a week or 2 weeks, guys. You just can't.
No. If a student is doing an exam for June, May is the month of revision. If they're doing an exam in March, February is the month of revision. I try and get my students to finish their tuition phase 5 weeks before the exam. So they've got a whole month, a whole calendar month to revise, and then a few days, before the exam, just to kind of almost warm down, almost taper, almost to work on their head rather than to be cramming. Yeah. You know, the night before the exam, Helen, what did you do the night before your exam? What was your routine?
Lie down and sleep, like an early night's sleep. Even I say to my students, like, even if you don't actually close your eyes and sleep, lie your body down, because your body will appreciate it so much more than you realize. Yeah, and do nothing. Yeah,
because the next day is a big performance. You know, what I think you did what Usain Bolt would have done the night before a big race. He wasn't out sprinting as fast as he could the night before. No, he'd done his groundwork, you know, months before, weeks before, and he was replaying in his head how he was going to do the exam. He was trying to relax. That's what I sort of fell into as a student. I fell into that routine of having an early night, going for a walk, having my favorite meal, trying to feel positive about myself.
Chicken and broccoli.
Yeah,
protein,
chicken and broccoli.
Energy food, brain food. Yeah.
Oh no.
A lot of broccoli was consumed 2 weeks before my exam.
Chicken tikka jalfrezi for me.
But and another thing that you've picked up on, which is exactly what I say, is I recommend a 4 to 6 week revision phase on purpose. I have an online course which is how to revise in 30 days on purpose. This isn't me trying to extend your revision phase. This is me and you know, us experts, without sounding arrogant, but we've been there, we've done that, and we've coached a lot of students. We say 4 to 5 weeks on purpose because that gives you a really strong structured revision phase to practice successfully and to fail and to learn. Not that you fail, but you know, you have those friendlies
to reflect
and learn and reflect and learn. You know, 30 days is a really, really solid way to do that, guys. So if you are doing more like 3 days or 7 days, I would encourage you to extend that for sure, especially if you're failing. Obviously, if you're passing that way, then don't change your approach. But if you are failing that way, extend it.
Yeah, no, wise words, Helen. You're a wise woman, and more wind beneath your wings.
Thank you. Oh, Tom, it's been so good to interview you. Thank you for talking us through your revision journey.
Pleasure.
For anybody who is sitting SBR or would like to have some SBR support or ACCA support, where can they find you?
That's easy. My name is Tom Clendon, Clendon. I think if you put my name into Google, you'll find my podcast, you'll find my website, you'll find me on LinkedIn, you'll find me on Instagram. They'll find me.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Tom. It's been really good to interview you.
Thank you, Helen. Always a pleasure.